Good afternoon, my Real News Media TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update for February 17, 2024. And in the news this afternoon, political debates, sign language dilemma. The Jamaica Debates Commission has promised to correct the problems related to the quality of sign language interpretation challenges highlighted in the first of two local government political debates, which was staged on Thursday. The Jamaican deaf community took issue with the sign language interpreter assigned to the debate, saying the interpreter was not equipped to function at that level. Executive Director of the Jamaica Association of the Deaf, Kimberly Marriott Blake, speaking with the news on Friday, said based on the setting, the quality of the signing was lacking.
The ability of the interpreter to really flow with the presenters, that was a key one. And the second concern was really the visibility of the interpreter. One, because the background and the interpreter herself would have been in the same color, and so it made it a little bit difficult to see. And then the other, because of the size of the picture-in-picture. And so the picture-in-picture was quite small in some presentations. In another presentation, there was the concern of a logo covering the interpreter, and so the communication was therefore, lost completely.
Additionally, interpreter Antoinette Aiken observed that some crucial information was not signed by the interpreter.
Perfect example would be the word democracy. It was used quite a lot, but it was never signed. Wow. Deaf people really didn't know what was happening. They were really lost. Another thing, facial expressions is very important in Jamaican Sign Language. And if you don't have that, you are not signing. Jamaican Sign Language is a very expressive sign language, one of the most expressive in the world. And as a matter of fact, Jamaican Sign Language, we use our entire body, down to our feet.
Vice Chair of Jamaica Debates Commission, Brian Schmidt, responding to the news, confirmed that the organization is already taking steps to address the quality of the sign language interpretation that will be offered during the second and the final night of the local government debates. The second debate is set for Saturday evening, starting at 9 o'clock. Police dismiss claims of political tension after PNP candidate's car set on fire, alleged culprit killed. The police high command is dismissing claims of political tension in the Rose Hall division in St. James after the motor vehicle of the PNP councillor candidate was set on fire on Thursday night. A man said to be responsible for setting the fire was fatally shot in the community less than 2 hours later. The dead man, 44-year-old Kenroy Doman, was found with bullet wounds sometime after 9 p.m. in an area known as Africa, closer to his home. Assistant Commissioner Clifford Chambers, head of the Area 1 Police Headquarters, told the news that there is no political tension in the area arising from the two incidents.
Let me make it categorically clear that there's no evidence at this stage that is linking his demise to any political friction. What investigators have verified is that a request was made of him to one of the caretakers, and the caretaker, obviously based on information, know that he's suffering from a mental issue. He's schizophrenia and is being treated for such. His last visit to the hospital was on 8th of February of this year, so he's on medication for his mental condition. The caretaker, to my understanding, refused to purchase the alcoholic beverage that he demanded, and as a result of that, he was a little bit upset, and then he left the precinct. Investigators have so far indicated that he was seen setting fire to the vehicle when the crowd came out. Hours after that, he was fatally shot, but they have not yet at this stage verified that the two incidents are linked. Investigators have information relating to the vehicle that the men fired from, killing him. And I must commend the maturity of the persons from both political organization in the mature way in which they're going about canvassing. We're seeing camaraderie between the major political parties, which is good, and we as police officers are canvassing the areas, giving the necessary approval for the public march, the meeting, giving the necessary support where necessary as it relates to maintaining law and order and ensuring that the public thoroughfares are not unduly blocked. But so far, we're seeing high level of maturity from the parties involved, and for that, we're extremely grateful. And for the citizens as well, who was expressing a high level of camaraderie between both political faction, the major political faction, and that we're happy for.
The Jamaica Labour Party councillor candidate for the Rose Hall division, Anthony Murray, has said his party condemns what he called the unfortunate incident which occurred in Lilliput on Thursday night. In an interview with the news, Mr. Murray insisted the JLP was not involved or had any influence on the two incidents. Mr. Murray maintained that the JLP is promoting a clean campaign and does not support violence. Wife of slain taxi driver weeps during testimony. Patting her chest at different intervals and crying profusely, wife of slain taxi operator Winston Walters gave emotional testimony in court on Friday as she recalled the day her husband was killed. She recalled trying to reach her husband by telephone at different points in the afternoon on January 2, 2018, but to no avail. The wife was given evidence in the Home Circuit Court from a remote location during the murder trial of Omar Collymore and his co-accused Shaquille Edwards, Michael Adams, and Dwayne Pink. The men are being tried on 2 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to murder in connection with the January 2, 2018 double murder of Walters and the businesswoman Simone Collymore. Simone was the wife of Omar Collymore. Walters, who was driving his cab with Simone as the passenger, was gunned down along with her on Stanley Terrace in Red Hill, St. Andrew, just outside the apartment complex where the businesswoman lived with Collymore, her husband. Collymore was said to have been at home at the time of the incident. The wife of Walters told the court that before leaving home on the morning he was killed, he said he didn't feel the vibes to go to work, but said he was going to do it for his kids. He left out between 8:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. He was supposed to take me to the bank to add my name to an account he opened, so he called me after 2 p.m. and I spoke to him briefly. I had a headache and couldn't go, so I told him that we would do it the other day. I never spoke to him again. She said she sent text messages to him sometime after 4 p.m., but there was no response. I waited a while, and after sending another message, I called and I called. At 6:30 p.m. I was watching Indian shows when I got a call from the taxi company that he had an accident. I told the kids to get dressed because we have to go to the hospital. I ended up going to my mother's house. On January 3, 2018, I went to the Constant Spring police station, where the police showed me the car. The windscreen was gone and they handed me his belongings. January 11, 2018 was when we did the autopsy at the Tranquility Funeral Home, where I identified the body of my husband. Taking into consideration the wife's emotional state, defense attorneys opted not to pose any questions to her. Another witness, who is a security officer at the apartment complex where Simone and Collymore lived, testified that a strange man who was in a parked blue car inside the complex turned out to be one of the shooters in Simone's murder. The security officer testified that in the logbook at the gate, the suspicious man was logged as being a visitor of Omar Collymore. He also testified that Simone had made checks with him to find out the different times her husband entered and exited the complex. It was not made clear why she had made these checks. Monday, January 1, I was on duty from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on January 2, 2018. I recall 1:59 a.m. when I was at the guardhouse and Mrs. Collymore drove up to the gate from her house. I went inside and retrieved the logbook. I approached Mrs. Collymore and showed proof to the information she requested. January 1, Mr. Collymore entered at 9:30 p.m. and exited at 10:40 p.m. He came back at 1:02 a.m. and left the compound at 6 a.m. the morning of January 2. At 2:35 a.m., Mrs. Collymore returned to the premises. I was making a routine foot patrol when I observed a light blue Toyota motor vehicle parked adjacent to the car park. This was right across from the Collymore's residence. Mr. Collymore was the person the driver came to. I had never seen that vehicle before. I jotted down the license plate and inspected the vehicle. The vehicle did not come there whilst I was working my shift, so I checked the logbook. I saw an individual in the driver's seat sleeping. I continued to walk around the car. I used my foot to bounce the vehicle to awaken the individual. He slightly lifted his head and put it back down. I could see his face, hand and complexion. At 6 a.m. I was at apartment number 1 by the fence. I positioned myself there because I wanted to see clearly who was coming out of the vehicle. At 6 a.m. the person exited the vehicle. and walked off in the direction of apartment number 2 and knocked on the door. I went to the pool area for a minute, and when I realized nothing unusual was taking place, I went back to the guardhouse, he told the court. He said while at home in the afternoon on the same day, he received a phone call with instructions to report it to the guardhouse at the apartment complex. He complied, and when he got to the location, he said he saw a larger crowd and the police. He was then taken into a room to review security camera footage of the day's happenings. He said that when he watched the tape, he saw 2 men pumping bullets into a motor vehicle at the gate of the apartment complex, and they said one of the shooters was the man he saw sleeping in the blue car on the compound earlier that morning. When I got there, officers were already viewing the surveillance system, and I viewed it as well. I viewed a dark blue 4-door taxi approaching the gate. Following behind were 2 motorcycles with 2 riders and 2 pillion. A female guard was approaching the gate to see who it was. By that time, the 2 pillion came off. One went to the passenger side and the other went to the driver's side. I could see the men in their entirety. I noticed that the first shooter that came on the driver's side was the same individual I saw the morning who had come out of the blue car and went to Mr. Collymore. He had on the same clothes. The security officer will continue his testimony on Monday when the trial will resume.